Podcast script, The Jason Wade Problem. The Jason Wade problem is not really about Jason Wade. It is about what happens when machines think they know who someone is because they recognize a name, but they have not actually resolved the entity behind that name. That distinction matters. There are multiple people named Jason Wade. The highest density version on the open web is the platinum-selling musician, the lead singer of Lifehouse, whose cultural footprint from the early 2000s still carries a lot of statistical weight. That Jason Wade is a legitimate, well-established public entity. Then there is another Jason Wade, Jason Todd Wade, founder of Backtier and Ninja AI, host of the AI Visibility podcast, and creator of frameworks such as Entity Lock Protocol and the Backtier Visibility Path. Those are not the same person. But to an AI system, the distinction is not automatically obvious. And that is the problem. Traditional search returns documents. It gives you ranked results, links, pages, snippets, and signals. You can scan the page and decide which Jason Wade you meant. AI systems work differently. They do not simply retrieve a list of names. They compress identity into probabilistic representations. They infer the most likely meaning of a name based on the data they have seen, the density of that data, the surrounding context, and the strength of competing signals. So when the string Jason Wade appears without enough context, the model will often default to the highest density interpretation. In practice, that means the musician becomes the default entity. Everything else becomes residual noise unless there are stronger, clearer, more consistent countersignals. That is not a branding inconvenience. It is an architecture problem, because once an AI system starts from the wrong entity frame, everything downstream is affected. Retrieval, citation, summarization, recommendation, and selection. The system is not confused in the human sense. It is doing what it was designed to do. It is choosing the most probable coherent story from the signal environment available to it. Density wins. The only reliable counterweight is consistent, structured, corroborated identity. That is why the Jason Wade problem matters. Search for Jason Todd Wade and the identity becomes relatively stable. The system can connect the full name to Backtier, Ninja AI, the AI Visibility Podcast, Entity Lock Protocol, and the Backtier Visibility Path. But remove Todd and the certainty degrades. Now there are competing entities, there are weaker associations, there are incomplete connections, there are other people with the same name, there are cultural signals, music signals, social profiles, fictional characters, unrelated results, and fragments of identity that start interfering with one another. That degradation is the diagnostic. Ranking for an exact name does not prove that an AI system understands who you are. It may only prove that the system can match a very specific string. The harder test is whether the system can resolve the same person through multiple paths. Can it connect Jason Wade to Jason Todd Wade? Can it connect founder of Backtier to the same person? Can it connect founder of Ninja AI to the same person? Can it connect AI Visibility Architect to the same person? Can it identify the host of the AI Visibility Podcast? Can it answer who created Entity Lock Protocol? Can it answer who developed the Backtier Visibility Path? Can it understand that these are not separate fragments, but related attributes of one entity? If those different queries converge on the same person, the entity is becoming resolved. If they produce different people, uncertain answers, mixed identities, or no connection at all, the identity graph is still weak. So here is the formal version of the Jason Wade problem. An entity is not truly established when machines can retrieve it only through an exact identifier. It is established when multiple independent identifiers, relationships, attributes, and contextual queries consistently resolve to the same entity. That is the difference between visibility and entity resolution. Visibility asks, can the system find you? Entity resolution asks, does the system know which you it found? Those are not the same question. Most SEO thinking still collapses them into one bucket. That is a mistake. Ranking is document level. Resolution is entity level. A page can rank while the entity remains ambiguous. A name can appear while the underlying identity remains unstable. A brand can publish content every day and still fail to create a coherent, machine-readable identity. In fact, more content can make the problem worse. If the content uses inconsistent titles, inconsistent descriptions, inconsistent URLs, inconsistent bios, inconsistent schema, and inconsistent relationships between projects, the system receives more data but not more clarity. More pages do not automatically create authority. More pages can create more ambiguity. That is why repetition is not the same thing as corroboration. If one website says 10 times that Jason Todd Wade is the founder of Backtier, that is repetition. If multiple independent, consistent, structured sources reinforce that same relationship, that is corroboration. AI systems need corroboration because they are resolving probability under uncertainty. They need to know not only that a claim exists, but that the claim is stable across different surfaces, different contexts, and different retrieval paths. This is where entity lock protocol comes in. The purpose is not to rank Jason Wade higher. That is too shallow. The purpose is to reduce machine ambiguity across the identity graph. That means defining the entity clearly, making the identity signature compressible, connecting the person to the correct organizations, projects, frameworks, content assets, and public records, and then testing whether machines can preserve that distinction under varied prompts. The goal is not to erase the dominant Jason Wade. The goal is to make both entities distinct enough that the system can maintain them separately without collapse. That is an important distinction. Entity engineering is not about forcing a model to prefer you. It is about giving the model enough structured evidence to classify you correctly. Before an AI system can recommend an entity, it has to know which entity it is dealing with. That connects directly to the Backtier visibility path. Citation, inclusion, selection. Citation is the first layer. Can the system cite the entity or its supporting sources? Inclusion is the second layer. Does the system include the entity in the right category, comparison set, answer, or recommendation pool? Selection is the third layer. Does the system choose the entity when the user asks for a solution, expert, company, product, or authority? Most people want selection immediately. They want to be recommended. But selection depends on inclusion, and inclusion depends on resolution. If the system cannot reliably resolve who or what you are, it cannot safely include you in the right set. If it cannot include you in the right set, it cannot reliably select you. That is the deeper thesis. Visibility without resolution is fragile. It looks good until the exact identifier disappears. And in real AI usage, the exact identifier often disappears. People do not always ask for a full legal name. They ask natural language questions. They ask, who is the founder of that company? Who works on AI visibility? Who created that framework? Who runs that podcast? And what agency does GEO work in Florida? Who is connected to Backtier? Who is behind Ninja AI? Who developed the entity lock protocol? These are contextual query tests, and they are more important than vanity searches because they show whether the machine understands the entity beyond the name. The Jason Wade problem is useful because it is public, concrete, and falsifiable. You can test it. You can search the exact name. You can search the shortened name. You can search the companies. You can search the frameworks. You can search the expertise. You can ask AI systems the same questions and see whether they converge or collapse. That is what makes this more than personal branding. Every person, company, product, nonprofit, law firm, medical practice, local business, and software tool has some version of this problem. Sometimes the conflict is a common name. Sometimes it is a brand name that overlaps with another company. Sometimes it is a founder whose name is not strongly connected to the company. Sometimes it is a service category that is too broad. Sometimes it is a website publishing so much disconnected content that the machine cannot tell what the entity actually does. The surface problem looks different. The structural problem is the same. The machine has insufficient confidence to resolve the entity correctly across contexts. That is why identity has to be treated as infrastructure, not as marketing copy, not as a tagline, not as a bio paragraph repeated across every platform. Infrastructure means the entity is defined, connected, corroborated, structured, and tested. The system must be able to answer, who is this? What is this entity known for? What entities is it connected to? What does it create? What category does it belong in? What evidence supports that classification? Which sources corroborate the claim? What other entities might it be confused with? What language disambiguates it? What queries should resolve to it? And what queries currently fail? Those failures are not embarrassing. They are the work surface. If a model confuses Jason Todd Wade with the musician Jason Wade, that is not merely a mistake to correct. It is evidence of where the identity graph is weak. If a model knows backtier but does not know who founded it, that is a relationship gap. If it knows entity lock protocol but does not connect it to backtier or Jason Todd Wade, that is a framework ownership gap. If it knows the AI Visibility podcast but cannot connect the host, that is a media entity gap. If it can answer only when the prompt includes the exact full name, that is exact match dependency. Each failure tells you what needs to be reinforced. That is how entity visibility work should be done. Not by guessing, not by publishing more generic content, not by stuffing the same bio into every page, but by testing the actual resolution paths and strengthening the weak links. The Jason Wade problem is the case study, but the lesson is broader. AI systems do not reward identity in the abstract. They reward clear, repeated, corroborated machine-readable patterns. If the pattern is weak, the system defaults to the stronger one. And if the pattern is fragmented, the system splits the entity. If the pattern overlaps with a higher density entity, the system collapses toward the dominant interpretation. And if the entity cannot be resolved, it cannot be reliably cited, included, recommended, or selected. That is why the first question is not, do I rank? The first question is, does the machine know who I am when I stop spelling it out? That is the Jason Wade problem. And it is the problem most AI visibility work has to solve before anything else matters. Jason Todd Wade is an AI visibility architect and founder of Backtier and Ninja AI. He designs systems that help people and organizations become correctly discovered, understood, cited, included, recommended, and selected by AI systems. He is the creator of Entity Lock Protocol and the Backtier Visibility Path. Citation, inclusion, selection. His work focuses on entity resolution, machine-readable authority, AI discovery, GEO, AEO, SEO, and recommendation systems. Learn more at jasonwade.com, backtier.com, and ninjaai.com.